So CNN had a town hall featuring Bernie Sanders, and even though there were a ton of great moments, unfortunately, a lot of the good was overshadowed by this.
Do you accept the intelligence community's assessment of Russia's involvement in motivating the hacks during the election? And how do you understand the president-elect's resistance to that analysis?
Yes, I do agree with the intelligence communities. They are virtually unanimous. I think the evidence is overwhelming. And we should be clear, this is not just the first time they've done it, and I suspect they're working on other efforts as well in other countries around the world. This was a way for them to help elect the candidate of their choice, Mr. Trump. And I think it was also an effort to try to undermine in a significant way American democracy. So I think the evidence is very clear that Russia did play a very harmful role, unacceptable role, and it's something that we have got to deal with. I think what Mr. Trump appears to be saying is that, no, it's not true, it's not accurate, I don't trust the intelligence committees, and I think that is an unfortunate position to hold.
So after this aired, I had a ton of progressives reach out to me saying, Mike, what the hell is going on? Why is Bernie Sanders pushing this same hysteria over Russia that the Democratic Party establishment is doing? And let me just say this. Part of me thinks that Bernie Sanders doesn't necessarily buy into this hysteria completely, and he never talks about it. But what I do think that Bernie Sanders is doing is he's being calculative here, which is uncharacteristic of Bernie typically, because we all know that if Bernie Sanders said anything different, he would have been crucified by the Democratic Party, and right now he's trying to reform them. So I think that him saying this is a way of saving face, and I don't necessarily believe that Bernie Sanders buys into the Russian hysteria as much as Democrats do, and certainly he's talking more about what Democrats need to do to reach out to voters, whereas the rest of the establishment right now is just going crazy like chickens with their head cut off over this hysteria and the alleged hacking of John Podesta and the DNC's emails. Now, what I would have done if I were Bernie Sanders is I would have flipped it on Chris Cuomo. So I would have said, do you accept the substance of what was in those emails? Because by all accounts, these are legitimate emails which exposed overt corruption of Hillary Clinton, and it also exposed that the DNC rigged the primary against me. Do you accept the substance there? And furthermore, if I were Bernie, I would have taken that opportunity to call out the network of CNN that Chris Cuomo works for and say, you guys have been incredibly irresponsible, because what they do is they constantly perpetuate this notion that the election itself was hacked. Because if you watch CNN, they'll say, well, Trump responds to election hacking. That will be the banner on the screen. And I saw it at the gym. Like, I've been seeing this. It's been a constant thing. When you say that the election was hacked, you're implying something much more sinister went on. What we're talking about here is allegedly hacked emails, which what we know is that they were leaked, but you're saying that these emails being hacked or leaked is tantamount to the election being hacked, and that is complete and utterly irresponsible, and it's also factually untrue. With that being said, though, regardless of what Bernie Sanders actually thinks about this, I do take issue with it, and I have to call him out where he's wrong. Now, there are two claims that he said in particular that bothered me. So one, he said that Russia tried to influence our democracy by hacking the emails of the DNC and John Podesta, and he also states that the evidence that we're not allowed to see yet is overwhelming. So first, when it comes to whether or not WikiLeaks and Russia tried to influence the election, to say that WikiLeaks releasing the emails of the DNC and John Podesta actually influenced the outcome of the election, I think that's a dubious claim, because we don't necessarily know the extent to which those emails swayed voters. As far as we know, it had zero impact, because before the election, there are many media outlets that were actually making fun of the release of these emails, because for months, WikiLeaks hyped it up, and then when they released it, they said it really was nothing that would be harmful to Hillary Clinton and that these emails were not consequential. But after the election, all of a sudden, we have a complete 180, and now we're supposed to believe that these emails cost Hillary Clinton the election. We had the Daily Beast write, WikiLeaks trolls the world, delivers nothing on Hillary. Washington Post states, scandal, WikiLeaks reveals Hillary Clinton to be reasonable. Vox said WikiLeaks reveals John Podesta's secret for making creamy risotto. So they literally were making fun of the release of John Podesta's emails, suggesting that there was nothing in there.
It's a drip, drip, drip of distraction, with campaign chair John Podesta's hacked emails now being released on a daily schedule by Julian Assange, trying to meddle with the U.S. election. No bombshells, but a revealing look at Clinton's strategy.
This is like a 9/11 for us. 9/11.
No bombshells.
9/11.
No bombshells.
9/11.
And furthermore, I think that you can make a stronger counter-argument to what Bernie Sanders is saying here. So if you're trying to claim that these emails influenced the outcome of the election, regardless of who won, wouldn't you also agree that if these emails are credible, because their legitimacy has not been called into question, if these emails were real, then doesn't that strengthen democracy because it allowed voters to make a more informed choice? Isn't that what we want? I mean, this isn't necessarily my argument, although it is to some degree, but I'm playing devil's advocate here, and I'm saying, well, if you think that this influenced democracy, and it influenced the outcome of the election, well, didn't it influence it in a good way? I mean, yeah, it's bad that Donald Trump won, but if you give voters more information, I think that that's good. So I'm glad that these emails were out here, because they confirmed what we were saying, that Hillary Clinton and Debbie Wasserman Schultz rigged the primaries against Bernie Sanders, and that there was a lot of conflicts of interest and pay-to-play deals between the Clinton Foundation and Hillary Clinton's State Department. Now, when he gets to the evidence, he says the evidence was overwhelming. Well, Bernie, if the evidence is overwhelming, then why can't the American people see the evidence? All that we can see is these reports that reiterate the same thing that we already know, the same thing we can see when we turn on the mainstream media, that a bunch of anonymous intelligence officials are claiming, yes, it was Russia that hacked into the emails of John Podesta and the DNC. Why should we accept that when there is contradictory evidence that claims that the DNC, their emails were exposed by an insider who gave that information to WikiLeaks? We also know that Julian Assange claims that this was not Russia, and furthermore, there's evidence to suggest that John Podesta was the victim of a phishing scam, and that's what ultimately exposed his emails. So we have contradictory evidence, and we're not allowed to see the evidence because it's classified, but yet you claim that the evidence is overwhelming? I think that's disingenuous, Bernie. I'm sorry. I love you, but I'm sorry. That is not true. What is overwhelming is what the intelligence community says, but that doesn't change the fact that we're not allowed to see the actual evidence. So I'm frustrated that Bernie Sanders, who was revealed to be the victim because of these leaks, which revealed that Hillary Clinton and the DNC sabotaged his campaign, I'm sad that he would parrot this same line. This is a distraction from the substance, and I'm sad that Bernie Sanders can't see that. Overt corruption was revealed with the release of these emails, and if we're going to penalize Russia for hacking into the emails of our public officials, why don't we stop doing it to people ourselves? We literally were caught spying on the German Chancellor Angela Merkel. So if we are expecting other people to not do that to us, we should lead by example. So to Democrats, you know, if Russia allegedly does it, that's not okay. But if we do it, it's perfectly fine. We're not going to speak out against that. No, we need to not be hypocrites when it comes to hacking others and cybersecurity. And furthermore, Democrats like to cite Lindsey Graham and John McCain as people who are apparently horrified with Russia undermining our democracy. And since even these guys believe it, then it must be true because, well, if they're siding with Democrats, they must have a good reason to side with Democrats. But no, you idiots, don't you see what's going on? This undermines your point because they're warmongers. They want war with every single country imaginable. They've never seen a war that they don't like. So they probably want war with Russia, and they don't actually give a shit about Democrats or the integrity of our elections. And all that I'm saying is that if Russia actually did do it, then one, you need to increase cybersecurity immediately to prevent this from happening in the future, and two, declassify the evidence so that we can see it before you take action against Russia, but that's already too late. And finally, don't saber rattle against Russia right before a madman takes office. You're literally trying to create tensions with Russia and escalate conflict right before Donald Trump will be sworn in. That's just crazy. You're insane to me if you want to do that. So in the end, here's my message to Bernie. Russia did not rig the election against Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, but the emails that were released, regardless of who released them, they confirmed that the primaries was rigged against you, Bernie Sanders. Now, by parroting the same line of the establishment, you're allowing them to escape accountability, and that's unacceptable. You're the victim, Bernie. The election was rigged against you, so don't allow them to form this distraction and then buy into it. I don't care if they try to crucify you or call you out for it or call you a traitor. You have to do what's right, Bernie, so don't let them influence you on this. So I expect Bernie Sanders to go on talking about the real issues, and he'll put this aside. But at the end of the day, I wish that Bernie Sanders would have been more nuanced on this issue, I guess.
Support this podcast by joining the independent progressive media revolution today at humanistreport.com.